Chapter 3. The Answer of the Music. Kirsten did not sing again after her triumph at the gala night. She seemed to disappear completely. Laura tried in vain to meet her. He wrote to her and waited anxiously for her reply. Eventually, he received a letter. Monsieur, I have not forgotten the little boy who rescued my scarf from the sea. Remember my father's? Tomorrow is the anniversary of his death. I'm going to Paris where he is buried with his beloved violin. Take the afternoon train and meet me at the setting sun inn. Then we can visit the churchyard where we played as children and said goodbye for the last time. Laura hurried to the train station. When he was seated in his carriage, he read Kristen's letter again and again. He smelled her sweet perfume that lingered on every page. Then he sat back in his seat, closed his eye, and thought of what he knew about Kristen's early life with her father. Monsieur Dan was a poor farmer from a little town. He worked all day in the field and sang in the church choir on Sunday. However, no one could compare to magical music he played on his violin. When Christine was 6 years old, her mother died, so Dad took his young daughter and traveled from town to town, earning a living through his music. Christine sang while her father played his violin. One day, as their beautiful magical note floated in the air, Professor Valerius stopped to listen. He was impressed and invited the dad to live with him and his wife. Christine soon blossomed into a lovely young girl. Madame Valerius treated her as a daughter. One summer, Professor Valerius took his wife and the dad to stay in Paris. Monsieur Dad and Christine went to the nearby village to play and sing for the people. That summer, Laura was staying at Paris with his aunt. He had secretly followed Christine for days, listening to her sweet voice and admiring her beauty. One day, the sky was blue and the sun shone warmly on the golden beach. But the winds were blowing strongly, and Christine's scalp had been whipped from her neck and carried out to sea. From nearby, he heard a voice call, "Don't worry, I will get it for you." And that's exactly what Laura did. Christine had laughed and kissed him on the cheek when he gave her the scarf, and Laura had been in love with her ever since. That year, they played together all summer. Monsieur Dag gave Laura violin lessons, and every day he told them a new story. One day, he told them the story of Little Lot. Little Lot had golden hair and clear blue eyes, just like you, Christine, said Monsieur Dad. She loved her lead shoes and her violin, but most of all, she loved to hear the answer of music while she slept. But no one ever said the answer, and only a few people ever heard him. And they are amazed at his heavenly voice. Then Kristen asked her father if he had ever heard the answer of music, but he shook his head and said sadly, "No, my child, but I'm sure you will hear him one day. When I die, I will send him to you." 3 years later, Christine and Laura met again at Paris. They spent every day talking. And when it came time for them to part, Laura kissed Christine on the lips and said, "I will never forget you." At last, Laura arrived at Paris and hurried to the setting sun inn. When Christine saw him in the sitting room, she blushed and said, "I was sure you would come. Someone at the church told me you had arrived." "Who?" "My poor dead father, of course." Then Laura asked, "But did he also tell you that I've always loved you and want to marry you?" "Don't be silly, Laura. How can you still love me after so many years?" "It's true, Christian," said Laura. "I don't want you to tell me such a thing," she cried. "Then why did you ask me to come?" he asked. "When I saw you other evening, I remembered the fun we had as children." "So why did you say that you didn't remember me that night?" But Christian didn't answer loud. "Was there someone else in your dressing room?" he asked. "What do you mean, Laura? Who was that man in your dressing room? Tell me." "Were you listening outside my door?" "Yes, and I heard everything he said." At these words, Christine turned pale and tears fell down as chill. Laura tried to take her in his arm, but she hurried to her room without saying another word. Poor Laura didn't know what to do. That frosty evening, Laura walked up to the little churchyard on the hill. He read the inscription on the headstone, then stood for a while gazing out to sea. He read the inscription on the headstone, then stood for a while gazing out to sea. Inscription on the headstone. The icy darkness closed in around him. Suddenly, he heard someone behind him. He turned to see Christine. "Do you remember the story about the angel of music?" he asked. "How can I forget them? It's the angel of music who comes to my dressing room." "I heard the angel of music." Christine moved closer to Laura and looked into his eye. "Yes," she said. Laura began to laugh and said, "After you left, I went into your dressing room. It was empty. Someone is playing a trick on you." "Oh, I'm thirsty. I have sore throat, so I go to take the water here." It was a warm water and it makes me feel better in my soul. So my soul, my sore throat is relieved after drinking water. Anyway, I will read the book for 2 minutes, and I read the 3 chapters today. "Yeah," she said. Laura began to laugh. "After you left, I went into your dressing room. It was empty. Someone is playing a trick on you." "Go away if you don't believe me," he cried angrily. Then she ran to it. He ran after her, but she screamed at him to leave her alone. Laura sadly returned to his room, but although he was tired, he couldn't sleep. She was very angry. Later that night, Laura heard someone outside his room. He quietly opened the door and was surprised to see Christine hurrying along the passage. He followed her to a little churchyard. She seemed to be in a dream as she prayed at her father's grave. Then Christine lifted her arm toward the sky. It was then, in the still night air, that he heard the music that Monsieur had often played, the resurrection of Lazarus. The following morning, Laura was found on the high altar in the church. He was freezing cold and barely alive, so they carried him quickly back to the inn, and the doctor was called. Christine didn't see me, cried Laura, but when she left, I saw a shadow hurrying into the church. I chased it and caught hold of his cloak. When it turned toward me, I saw the mask of death. It was horrible, just horrible. You've had a terrible nightmare, said the doctor. No, everything I told you is true, cried Laura. After a week, he felt well enough to return to Paris. Laura was found on the high altar. This book is Phantom of the Opera and is chapter 4, Great War, and the word to 120 words are using in this book, and I read this book first time today, and it was very difficult, so it takes too long time to understand this book. So I read again and again when I read this book, and I can't understand the meaning of the sentence. I reread the sentence, and after reading twice, I can understand what means the sentence is in this book. Anyway, I read 3 chapters of the book today, and I will read the other 2 chapters the next day. Okay, have a nice day, and we will have a Chuseok, and I must go to see my parents' home, and during 4-5 days I have no time to practice my English from Wednesday to Sunday. So maybe I want to practice my English for 5 days. Anyway, I want you have a good day with your family during 5 days during Chuseok, and have a nice day. Okay, bye.